You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What we want to ask you about, what are some of the things that you remember about different topics? Let's start with your parents.
Where'd they come from?
My father came from Ireland. My mother was born right here in Tewksbury.
What are some of the things you remember about your dad?
I don't care to remember them.
Was he mean to you?
He was mean to us all.
Did he hit you?
Yes.
I know he yelled.
He never, that was no problem. Off came the belt and you got it across your legs.
How was your mother?
Well, it was 6 kids. It was difficult. I found it with 3.
Was she a loving mother?
Well, times, but I thought it was fake.
What about your grandmother?
Oh, my grandmother loved all of us. She was wonderful to us. We'd always tell my mother, I'm going over and stay with Nana. Because she was right next door. She was wonderful to us. So when my mother died...
How old were you then? How old were you when your mother died?
I was 12. 12.
How old was Sonny? Your brother?
I think he was 5.
So he was at the age where he almost didn't understand.
He never knew his mother. No, and he didn't understand it. The funeral was right there at my grandmother's house, so her body was in the parlor for a couple of days. But they usually had four days for in the time of your death until you're buried.
Mm-hmm. When did you set your eyes on Homer?
Oh, one night I was in nursing school. One night I was up in Barbara's and my bedroom was on the 3rd floor. And I knew it was time for the bus and I was up on the sill up on the 3rd floor. And I yelled for Auntie to run out and stop the bus. And she signaled to the bus guy, but he went right by. And Homer was behind him, behind the bus. So we stopped and I can hear him now, getting out of that truck and saying, Frances, what's the matter? What's the matter? And she says, Sally missed the bus to get back to the hospital for 10 o'clock. And he said, well, I'll give her a ride, I'm going that way. He was going up to get ice up in Gages.
On the other side of the river.
Yeah, but it was closer than I would have
Sure.
gone any other way. And be on time. So that's where I met him.
You weren't in Sunday school together?
Well, he's 2 years older than me. So I don't know whether we were together or not. They kept the boys and girls separated all the time. You were either in a girls' class or a boy class.
They should have stayed that way. It should have stayed that way. So do you remember your first date with him?
We went out to eat, I think, because we wouldn't get through milking or anything. He didn't get cleaned up. You couldn't, let's see.
It was always that lovely fragrance.
What?
It was always that lovely fragrance. Eau de cow.
I know what you mean. Well, it could have been the next night or something.
That's fast.
It was soon after we met.
Wasn't he dating somebody else too?
Oh, we always had somebody else.
Oh.
He was He always had another girl.
So where did you go on your honeymoon?
Out to Niagara Falls. We went to Northfield for the first night. We got there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, it was
What was
long-
open at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Huh?
What was open at 2 o'clock?
Nothing. Nothing. They knew he had made reservations there, so they knew that we were coming. And we got there, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and he walked around the buildings and saw a man sitting down in the basement. And he rapped on the windows, and the man said, "I'll be right there." So he came out and he wanted to know who we were. And he says, "Well, you're the person I'm waiting for." So he took us to our room. We never saw him again.
Did you leave your room?
Well, I went downstairs the next morning to find out what time dinner was being served. Was it dinner or breakfast? He asked me, said to me, "Why don't you go down and find out what time dinner's being served?" So I went down, and the person that I spoke to said, "Dinner will be ready in 5 minutes." So I went back and told him, and he says, "Well, we're not going down there, we're leaving." The worst part of my life.
Was it during the war? During the auction?
Oh, of course, during the war, I thought your father was going to be drafted. But he said, "Dad, you didn't have to worry." He worked on a farm, and he had to be there, which was good.
How many German POWs were there?
We had between 5 and 6. Five, mostly 5. 5 at a time.
Did they speak any English?
No. But your father could understand them, I couldn't. Well, he kept me away. It was the time you were born. And when I came home from the hospital, these guys all wanted to see the baby. So I said, "Well, I'll take her out." He says, "You will not." He says, "You're not going near them."
Who were they?
Hmm?
Who were they?
German POWs?
German prisoners of war.
Right, but
Soldiers?
were they spies or
No, soldiers.
that had been captured and brought over?
They were captured soldiers.
They were kept at the state hospital, and the farmers could use them to help work on the farms locally.
You could get help on your farm. They would bring them to a destination. It wasn't from Tewksbury. They were at Devons.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's enough.
Came from Fort Devens, and we had to feed them. Give them their midday meal. They had had breakfast, and they go back. There would be a truck coming about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, pick them up.
Would you have married him again?
Yes, I would.
Tell me about having children.
I can't tell you much about it.
How many children did you have?
4.
When did you know that when did you learn that you'd lost the first one?
3 days after I had it.
So you never saw him?
No, he was already in the ground.
Did they ever take a photograph of him?
Yes. And he looked just like the rest of you.
Did he have curly hair?
Huh?
What color hair?
Red.
Well, Janet didn't have red hair.
No, Janet and Larry. No, Janet's the only one that didn't have it at birth. Larry had it at birth. It soon changed.
You pretty girls.
Yeah.
Tell me something about being on the farm.
The what?
Tell me one thing about being on the farm. What do you remember about being on the farm?
Oh, we could go out and eat raw vegetables, all the stuff we wanted.
And what about the farm on North Street?
Oh, that was cows, and I didn't drink milk. And you children never got raw milk. You were not supposed to have it. Yeah. When go through nursing and find out what the bugs that exist and what they can do to you, there was no way in hell that I could ever fed you children raw milk.
What would you like your friends to remember about you?
How wonderful I was.
Give me a couple more words.
Asshole.
I don't mean those kind of words.
What,
Oh, you
what
gotta
makes
go put this in the newspaper?
what makes you say that word?
What?
What makes you say that word?
Because I was a jerk in lots of ways.
Can you give us an example? Can you give us an example?
Not real. I can't really. But I liked a lot of boys, but I liked one in high school, but that boy liked somebody else, so I soon found that out. But
Okay, what are your parting words for your friends?
so long, it's been good to know you.
Okay, well said.